I first met Thomas Berry in the summer of 2000, as Carolyn just corrected me, at a conference at Timberlake Farm, at which he was the featured speaker. I had read his works and knew about him and had learned from his cousin, Zach Ralston, that Thomas had retired to Greensboro, so I was eager to meet him. Carolyn had arranged an informal dinner in his honor at the treehouse before his evening talk. And my first impressions of Thomas, as he got out of his small gray compact car, were of a slightly stooped but dynamic figure in rumpled clothes, shock of unruly white hair, a long angular face with a wry grin, penetrating warm brown eyes, and a firm handshake. He simply said, "I'm Thomas Berry." And I twitted him a bit. I said, asked him if he was any relation to Wendell Berry. And he replied, "Well, we're cousins." In spirit, I suppose he meant, and he chuckled. And after dinner that evening, he gave his talk in the large informal living room in Carolyn's home, which was filled with guests sitting in folding chairs in a circle. And Thomas talked for at least 2 hours without notes on the great work, and then continued to take questions from the audience and conversed with guests informally until late at night, when he drove himself back to Greensboro. And he was back the next morning by 9:30, ready to go for the next day. I was amazed at his physical and intellectual stamina and endurance. I don't think I'd ever met anyone like him before. He was earnest, articulate, learned, but without any academic pretensions. Though a scholar and a teacher, he wore his learning lightly, but he spoke about the great work with the intensity of Coleridge's Ancient Mariner. As I gradually came to know Thomas better, I realized that what he enjoyed most was a good dinner and lively conversation with friends or family members. After he retired to Greensboro in 1995, he lived by himself in a kind of monastic hermitage or retreat in the upstairs apartment of a small guest house on his brother Joe's wooded property in northern Greensboro off Horsepen Creek Road. His apartment was sparsely furnished with books, a computer, a few paintings and photographs, and the James Herriot Award from the American Humane Society. After his stroke in 2003, he joined his sister Margaret in nearby Wellspring Retirement Center, where he stayed in an assisted living apartment during his final years. Thomas especially looked forward to periodic visits from old friends and colleagues and former students from out of town. Their visits animated him and were the occasion of many memorable dinner conversations. Thomas was very close to members of his extended family in Greensboro, especially to his surviving siblings and to his many nieces and nephews, particularly, I think, with those in academe, but he was undoubtedly closest to his sister Margaret, who shared a passion for his work and served as his personal secretary, bibliographer, research assistant, and the organizer of his schedule. Margaret is herself a retired English professor and a scholar of Chinese literature. For more than 5 years, I met with Thomas on a regular basis and went out for meals and discussed a book I was working on. He would patiently answer my biographical questions, but always find a way to work back to his concerns. "You know, it's not my life, but my work that's important," he would remind me. And through these visits, I came to appreciate how important his family life and growing up in Greensboro were for him during his formative years, and how it took a lifetime for his thoughts to mature. Thomas Berry had an unusually long period of spiritual and intellectual formation in his career. He had been active as a scholar of Asian religions since the 1950s, and his books on Buddhism and the religions of India were published in mid-career. But it was not until 1988, when he was 73, that he published his first major environmental work, The Dream of the Earth. Thomas's last 20 years were the most productive of his life. 2 more major books, The Universe Story and The Great Work, were written in his 80s, along with numerous essays and addresses. His working schedule during this time would have staggered a younger man. Evening Thoughts were published in 2006, and 2 final essay collections, The Christian Future of the Earth and The Sacred Universe, appeared posthumously and there may well be other unpublished manuscripts as well. His intellectual vitality continued until the very end of his life. Born in 1914, Thomas was the third of 13 children in a large Southern Catholic family. He was named William Nathan after his father, but was always called brother by his family. He was influenced by his parents' strong work ethic, his father's deep piety, and his mother's loving kindness to her children and her gregarious sociability. Thomas later recalled that he was so difficult a child that by the age of 4, his parents didn't know how to handle him, so they decided to let him raise himself. Which, of course, he did. And this was one of his, I think, favorite anecdotes. In 1920, his parents founded Berry Coal Company, which later became Berrico Fuels in Greensboro. And all of the children worked long hours in the family business, including Thomas, who soon developed a deep distaste for the commercial world. Instead, he was drawn to people, pets, and nature, serving as the family peacemaker in his energetic family of 8 boys and 5 girls. During the summer, Thomas and his sister Merce worked in the office, while his other brothers worked alongside the employees shoveling coal and loading trucks. In his free time, he bicycled around Greensboro and the surrounding countryside and was active in Boy Scouts. During his childhood, he saw Greensboro grow rapidly as a regional commercial center in the North Carolina Piedmont. As a child, Thomas had a sense of inhabiting 2 realms, the world of nature and the world of commerce. He was repelled by the increasing exploitiveness of the world of business, and he realized he would never fit in there. He was drawn to nature, and the sight of a spring meadow with lilies flowering across the creek from their new home inspired a love of the wild that remained with him for the rest of his life. His family regularly worshiped at the old St. Benedict's Church in downtown Greensboro, but Thomas later also occasionally attended the small segregated St. Mary's Chapel in East Greensboro. He served as an altar boy from 2nd grade onward and knew the rubrics of the Latin Mass better than any of his siblings.